Afternoon, and welcome back to Jeff and the Rabbi. We got a good show for you today. Very interesting show. We're going to talk a little bit about...
Always interesting.
Even more interesting than normal, I'd say.
Oh, okay.
We're going to talk about sinners and saints. Mm-hmm. And, I got to thinking, as I do sometimes, the great thing about Christians and Christianity, the cool thing about it is, if you make it through all the hurdles, if you're a fairly righteous dude, and you make it through all the hurdles at the end, and they decide to make you a saint, the great thing about becoming a saint is they go in and they just cleanse your entire record. Mm-hmm. If in childhood you stole an eraser, everything, you literally become an absolute perfect human being. You are actually cleansed. If I had to compare it, you are cleansed greater than Nancy Pelosi cleansing the climate records if we had a 2-year drop in temperature. Mm-hmm. You're probably cleansed greater than Hillary Clinton's 30,000 yoga emails that were, her yoga emails that were in her server. Mm-hmm. You're even cleansed greater, and I'm going to keep going for a while, you're cleansed greater than CNN's coverage of a poor Palestinian kid that gets shot after he knifes an entire town, goes and tries to attempt to knife an entire town that they forget to mention. You're cleansed greater, let's just keep going while we're here, you're cleansed greater than the IRS's computers, cell phones, laptops, and desktops after they're put under an indictment and they get cleansed. Mm-hmm. More? You need more? You want me to keep going? Because I have more if you need to.
One more.
You're cleansed greater than let's say, a colonoscopy prep for Michael Moore. That's how well you're cleansed.
Whoa, okay, that's for sure. That was enough for me.
But probably we should stop
that did it right there. Okay, I'm all in. Yeah, I got it.
So my point is, you're cleansed, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So, but for some reason, us guys in the Jewish faith, even if you're a great rabbi,
right.
I mean, a rabbi, you do. I know you do everything as well as you can. Even at the end, we gotta recognize your flaws. We gotta recognize that you're a sinner and you do some bad things.
That's right.
And sometimes we even learn from the sins that you make.
Right.
So we don't have it as easy.
And one of our greatest dictums is, don't believe in yourself until the day of your death. Right? Even if you've been good, and usually it's followed up by the story that there was a great rabbi, a great Kohen Gadol, the high priest. He was a good man for 80 years, and at age 80, he flipped over, became a heretic, and he rejected everything. 80, a whole career of serving God in the temple, and he went bad. So you see, if that could happen, anything could happen.
Wow. You gotta watch it. Even in the nursing home, you gotta be careful. This is tough. So that's tough. So what's the deal with that, though?
So the deal is that we don't believe that sin is this external thing. Well, in a certain way, it's an external thing, but temptation is really part of the human condition, and that everyone has to contend with it. The greater you get, the greater your temptation, which means that God it's just like in the gym, they keep putting up the tension or adding more pounds to the machine, right? And that's the goal. The goal is not to be able to lift the weight, because as soon as you can lift that weight, they add a couple pounds more on, right? And the goal is to keep adding more to getting bigger muscles. In order to get bigger muscles, they have to keep adding more counterweights. And therefore, we look at when the greatest person dies, who resisted the evil inclination, they say when he dies, he'll look at it and it'll be like gigantic, like a mountain. Oh. And when the simple sinners die, they're going to cry, because they'll look at their evil inclination as like the 90-pound weakling.
So the bigger your evil inclination, obviously, the further you went in life, is what you're saying. Wow.
And the people that gave into it are going to cry, because they're going to look at it and they're going to go like, wow, I could have stood up to this.
I could handle that.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I for sure I could have. I thought it was some big, huge monster, and it turned out to be some 90-pound weakling. Because what happens is, every time you give in, God dials him down a little bit. So in other words, you didn't lift the weights, so God took off 2 pounds. You didn't lift it again, took off 2 more. You didn't lift it. Pretty soon, like, you got this little simple weight that all you had to do is put a little bit of effort in, you could have knocked it off. No.
Wow. So that's So we're saying even at 80, 90 years old, God's still adding more weight if we're doing the right thing.
Right. So let me tell you a story that goes with that. There's a rabbi And his name is Rabbi Chia bar Ashi. His father's name was Ashi. Okay, Chia, son of Ashi. Now, Chia, son of Ashi, used to pray every day, God, save me from temptation. Save me from temptation. One day, his wife heard him very, very sincerely uttering this prayer, God, save me from temptation. His wife says, it's kind of strange. He and I haven't been together already for some years. I thought it's because he's sort of past the temptation stage.
Right.
And yet I see him praying to be saved from temptation. I don't get it. So she decides to check it out, see what's going on. So he used to study in his garden. He had a garden, and then he used to study in the garden. And she dresses herself up, real fancy.
This is the wife now.
The wife, his own wife.
Right.
And she walks back and forth past him a couple of times. And finally, he notices her. And took him a couple of times till she got him to notice her.
Right.
Interestingly enough, he didn't recognize her. So he said, who are you? So she said, my name is Charusa. Now, Charusa happened to have been a well-known courtesan prostitute at the time.
Right.
Famous. And
like all the billboards.
Yeah, right.
Right.
She said, I have just returned to town. So he said to her, basically, how much? So she said to him, now this, we presume that this Rav Chia bar Ashi was an old man because he'd already been separated from his wife for some years, and his wife assumed that he was sort of past his prime.
Right.
So we figure we're dealing with an old man. We don't know exactly how old, but he's an older man. Old enough that his wife wasn't surprised that he is no longer showing particular interest in her. And she said, yeah, I want that fruit from the top of that big, tall palm tree.
Right.
He leaps up to the top of the palm tree, grabs the fruit, and brings it back to her.
Wow.
So she was obviously trying to test him to see,
He's
how into this.
The strength.
Yeah, does he still have it, right?
Yes.
And how into this is he. Now remember, this is his own wife.
Wow.
And she's masquerading and presenting herself like the famous prostitute. Okay. Anyway, he brings her the fruit. She says, okay, and they are together.
Right.
Okay, scene closes. Next thing you know, he comes home, and he is just depressed. He's got more than depressed. He is devastated. She is in the process of lighting the stove, and he tries to climb into the stove and kill himself.
Wow.
She goes, what's going on? He said, I got to be honest with you. I got to tell you what happened. I was just studying there. I was minding my own business. And along came this famous prostitute. And, I couldn't resist her, couldn't resist it. Her looks. She was all dressed up and fancy and everything. Couldn't resist. And I succumbed to her. And now I feel so bad, I just want to die. So his wife says to him, don't worry about it. It was me. He said, no, it wasn't you. I know you, that wasn't you. So anyway, they argued about it a bit. And finally, she told him over, like she described some of the events in a very exact way. And he said, oh, I guess it was you. Right? Because no one else would have known this or that.
Right.
Right? So, nonetheless, he said, but I intended to sin. Right? Even though she just basically got him off the hook.
Right.
He said, yeah, but I was ready to sin. I wanted to sin. I solicited the sin. I intended to sin. He says, I still want to die. He afflicted himself. He went on a very severe regimen and denied himself all worldly pleasures, and ultimately died.
Wow, because of that.
From this, yeah. He afflicted himself because he denied himself, kept on a real minimal diet, and lots of harsh treatment of himself, and he died. He died. He could not forgive himself, and he died.
Wow.
Wow.
Before you go on, I see two quick morals of the story.
Yeah, okay, let's see. So let's tabulate some morals here. Yeah, what do we got?
Pray in private so your wife doesn't hear you pray. That's number one. Two,
your wife should never know what you're praying
for. Yeah. Two, maybe the second moral is, the wife should put on some makeup at home every once in a while. We don't have to worry about being tempted, because she obviously was able to have everything work out to begin with.
Right.
Maybe a little makeup at home.
If she had tried a little more.
A little shade on and makeup, and everything would have been fine, and there wouldn't have been a problem. That's why you're so far back.
Obviously, you see that she didn't used to, because he didn't even recognize it.
He's saying, like, when you get to the point where she puts on makeup,
who this lady is.
Then you know you got a problem. And that's just me talking. I'm sure there's something deeper to this story than I got out.
Yeah, so you know what? First of all, there is something there. There is something there, and that is the idea that that perhaps their relationship had fizzled out,
right? And
it could have still been strong and vibrant, because you see that with the right inspiration, he was interested. Right, and you see that he was praying every day, God save me from temptation. So you see that he still had some temptation. Yep. And what we see in general is everybody still has some temptation. And it doesn't matter. He is a great, great, great rabbi. And it doesn't matter. He still had, that's why he was praying to God every day, save me from temptation. And that's why he was so devastated when he succumbed to temptation, because he saw, he probably thought himself, here I am, big rabbi, older man. You think I'm like farther enough along in my career that when something like this pops up, it could just,
And it did.
But it didn't. It didn't. He's in the same boat. The answer, the real lesson to be taken from this whole story is we're all in the same boat. And this is not, we don't look down on sinners. We really don't. Everyone realizes this is the struggle of life. This is what it's all about. We don't look down our nose at sinners and say, you bunch of losers. Everybody struggles, and everybody can fail. So on the one hand, a person should never think, I'm a saint.
Right.
Because according to us, saints give you no guarantees.
Right.
And on the other hand, we see that everyone should always ask for divine help in avoiding temptation. That's the only real way, we spoke about this last time, that asking for divine help is the way to get out of temptation.
Well, then I come back to kind of what we talked about last week. Then I have a problem with the situation. Why then, instead of asking for divine help, based on what you said at the beginning of the story, maybe he should have been praying for more temptation, because I want to prove that I am a strong man. I want that big giant, as you said.
So he got more temptation.
Well, and it didn't work out well for it.
But he got the more temptation. You don't have to pray for it. It came
anyway.
It came, and he failed.
But should you be praying not to get that temptation, though? Because as you're saying, look how strong I am.
He failed. Nobody should think.
But God expects you to fail. Adam failed. They all fail.
So we all are supposed to realize this is, this is the same thing. When we advise our children, like if you go to the party and they got drugs there, leave. Right? You don't hang out.
Hang out, see if you can make it.
You don't hang out and don't worry, I won't do that or whatever. You say, you see some bad stuff going down, get out of there. That's not the place for you. You want them to clear out. Now, I do want to mention, and this is based on what we spoke about last week as well as this week, taking the two in consideration, that our religion, this story and the story we spoke about last week are from the Talmud. Mm-hmm. The Bible also has many stories of very, very great people also failing or also succumbing or almost succumbing. The great story of Joseph, he almost succumbed. Right. Really, God just got him out of there by the skin of his teeth, but he really was ready to succumb. So we see great people, King David, and so on and so forth. Great people make tremendous blunders and sometimes succumb to their temptation. So contrast that with other religions.
Absolutely.
I do not know of any other religion that talks about the failures. We might talk about temptation, but in every other religion when it talks about temptation, they always succeed.
True.
They never talk about bona fide failures of great rabbis, bona fide failures of great biblical characters. We talk about failure. It's a very, very real religion which understands that life is all about success that comes after failure.
And that's the kind of point I want to make. The way I believe is failure is very important.
Right.
Failure in life, in business, in religion, and everything is very important because that's how we are supposed to grow. Those bumps in the road are there on purpose.
Right. So King Solomon said in the book of Proverbs, "For 7 times does the righteous man fall and get up."
That's
Meaning,
interesting.
you get a righteous man, you get someone that really made it in the end, you look back into his career, he fell. 7 times even. Fell and fell and fell again. But he got up. He got up. After those 7 failures, after each one, he must have gotten up because he couldn't have fallen again.
Right.
And after the second one, it's harder to get up after the second one.
No
And by the 7th one, you think that by the 7th time he fell, he goes like, I am just a loser. Forget it.
Right.
But the reason why he's righteous is because even after the 7th fall,
Right.
he said, I'm going to get up and I'm going to make something of myself. And that's what life is really all about. It's about those 7 falls that enable you to get up that extra time and that to get up that 7th time and to be righteous. And that's where greatness is. So it's really about a religion that says, don't get depressed, don't throw in the towel, don't give up, don't think that you can't do it, and don't think that your horrible failing track record
Right.
is the evidence that you can't do it. Get up again and try it again.
And like I always like to quote some of the righteous people, Miley Cyrus, in her song, which I know you're familiar with, you guys play that in synagogue, The Climb, and I'm sure she didn't write this, it's not about getting there to the top, it's the climb that you get in there. You're going to fall down. It's not just getting to the top of the hill. Mm-hmm. It's the climb. Is that what you're trying? I know I don't want to put Miley Cyrus's words in your mouth, but
it seems
sorry about that.
I think that Miley Cyrus has had the fall.
She's only 6 times now. She's got one more. And
She really, I think she really needs to get up a little
Right.
bit, So but that's our reality. That is our reality. That's what we're all about. So it's a religion of redemption. It's not a religion that says throw in the towel, just believe. You're from your very beginning, your original sin, and you don't stand a chance, and you have to go to some other medium or event or person or whatever, prophet or son of God or whatever, and he'll get you through it. No. It means you are going to work, but God says you can do it. You can do it. And that is the big thing. Personal responsibility, but the key in personal responsibility is don't ever get depressed. Don't ever throw in the towel. You have to
You mean
get
like
up.
this rabbi at the end who kind of threw in the towel?
He so mourned that he actually died from it, and I don't know that's what we're looking for.
No, and the whole concept makes sense because it is. If you look at the Jewish religion, there's not just we did it, we got out there, you step at the plate the first time, grand slam, home run, and everything happens. No, there's a lot of failings.
That's right.
40 years in the desert, the spies, everything. Nothing worked out clean and easy.
Right.
But that makes sense because that is what life's about, and I get that, and that makes sense.
Now, we believe in repentance and we believe in atonement, but I don't think that the story of this rabbi is really the model, because to die in your repentance is not really the goal. The goal is to live by the Torah, not to die by the Torah. So he should have somehow found the ability to overcome it. I think you see that since he used to pray every day,
right.
spare me from sin, there's a big challenge. Right? Many people, they avoid sin. It's fantastic. Avoid temptation. That is great. But sometimes people who are very, very good at avoiding it can't deal with it when it comes. Right. And you have to realize also, it happened. I got to pick myself up and brush myself off and say that I can still face tomorrow. He couldn't.
And wasn't that, though, and I think you talked about it a little bit last week as well, one of the hesitations of the spies in the desert was, God said to go into the land of Israel, and they knew if they went into the land of Israel, there was going to be temptation. You have to work, you have to, earn a living, so there's going to be different kind of temptations that are coming from that, and living a normal life, and they chose, I want to go back out to the desert.
Avoid the whole thing.
And avoid everything. So, I mean, I just, you never know, and I'm sure this is the biggest issue. How much do you avoid, and how much, I got to live here, I got to handle myself in the real world, so how much do you avoid and how much with the temptation? Actually,
these are really, there's two different methodologies, and there's two different personalities. We see that there's Rachel and Leah, or their sons, there are Judah and Joseph, which came from Rachel and Leah. And the Rachelites and the Josephites generally try to avoid sin at all costs. But when they sin, they don't do so well with it. They don't do so well snapping back. Leah and her son Judah, they are more willing to confront temptation.
They definitely had some.
But they fail more. However, they do better with the failure and are better able to pull themselves up afterwards. They're different personalities, or even spiritual personalities, and everyone has to know themselves. But everyone has to realize some people are perhaps played a little too loose, and they need to stay a little bit more away from temptation. Other people are so good about avoiding temptation, but if they fail one time, they just can't pull themselves back together. Yeah, and that's no good either. That's no good. You got to be able to get up.
So I guess, when being a Catholic would be really easy. You do whatever you got to do, and you go into one of those little booths.
That's right.
Tell it there, and you say a couple Hail Marys and whatever, and you're fine.
Right.
I mean, I could, listen. I would plan on my weekend in Vegas. Okay, you go to Vegas, you come home, you stop by on the airport. They should have a little confessional on the way out of Vegas, as a matter of fact. That would be a perfect idea. Boom, you're clean by the time you get home.
Right.
And it doesn't work that way, though, in Judaism.
No.
But I've always believed, and I think maybe it comes from the Torah, failure is one of the best things we can have. That's why I still stick with the story. Your Yeshua can be your best friend.
That's right. That's right. Failure is just wonderful. Just don't go looking for it. If it's going to find you, it will find you.
You don't have to seek it too
hard. It'll find you. Don't worry.
Okay, so I guess that makes sense. But it's interesting story though, because I get it. I see where it goes. We got to deal with it.
That's right.
All right, good. All right, well, let's see if you can make it another week without too much temptation.
That's right. Pray to avoid temptation,
and really try. But don't kill yourself if you fail.
Right.
Okay. See you next week.